Do you feel exhausted in the middle of the day, crave sugar constantly, struggle to lose weight no matter what you do and how hard you try? Your metabolism may be sending you warning signs, and most people completely miss this. Most people think metabolism is just about burning calories, but your metabolism is so much more. It controls your energy, your cravings, impacts your sleep, your focus, your fat storage, which is what everybody knows, and even how fast you go through life. The scary part, millions of people are damaging it every single day without realizing it. And we're going to dive deep into it right after this. Most people are stuck in a one-size-fits-all industrial approach to health. It treats symptoms, not the people. In both Martin and my own health journeys, it broke down due to toxic medical procedures. And the secret to restoration is understanding your unique metabolic needs. At Life Enthusiast, we specialize in natural solutions for chronic problems by helping you identify exactly what your body requires to heal itself. We move you away from the generic industrial method and towards a pain-free life built on your specific biology. Welcome, everybody. This is the Life Enthusiast Health Shots podcast. We're here to restore vitality to you and the planet. I'm your co-host, Scott Patton. Joining me, as usual, health engineer Martin Patella. Hey, Martin, how are you doing today?
It's good. I'm thriving.
Awesome.
And I booked a haircut.
Yeah. As you can see, I had a haircut yesterday, and she trimmed a little bit of the beard, but I think she missed a part.
Yep.
So, Martin, we want to dive right into it. We're really excited, everybody, because we have an app that is absolutely going to change your life, and that is no hyperbole. Before we get to the app, we need to set down some foundational information for you. And the first one is metabolic health. What is it and why is it important?
Yeah, truly, an emergency room is set up to save your life. If you're coming in off of a car accident bleeding, or if you have broken a leg by falling, those were accidental and hard to avoid. But if you're coming there with a heart attack or a blood clot that has caused you a brain injury like stroke, or if you're coming in there with blindness because of your diabetes, that's preventable. That is not something that was accidental. That was by design. And I would say that aging, as we know it, is essentially a response to incorrect inputs. And that's what I want to talk about.
Cool. So what are the components of our metabolism that we need to be concerned about?
Okay. Well, the food to energy conversion happens in mitochondria, which is inside of every cell. 10,000 mitochondria per cell in your heart.
Wow.
Some high number in liver and brain, and muscles, the physical red meat, and then much lower elsewhere. But the more energy demanding that organ is, the more density of these mitochondria. And these are like tiny little combustion chambers where food, either glucose or fat, is taken apart and in presence of oxygen converted into energy. And the energy is used for moving, living, digesting, healing, repairing, just anything that you want to do, right? No energy, no function.
Right. So we get that energy predominantly from the food that we eat.
Yeah.
But our metabolism can be negatively affected by things like poor sleep and being overstressed.
Yeah. Stress will set you into terrible situation. So we talked about stress as such that takes you into fight or flight, the sympathetic side of the functioning, which is working on preserving your immediate existence at the expense of long-term survival, right? Like we're throwing everything we have into the short term because danger
Right.
requires that all resources are channeled and funneled to the immediate survival.
You just reminded me of Danger, Danger, Will Robinson, Lost in Space, right?
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, when there's a tiger coming at you, you're not concerned about 2 years from now. Like you need to, you know, get
Yeah.
everything going
5 minutes.
fight and or run and fight or flight, right?
Yep.
And
5 minutes.
right,
5 minutes.
yeah, it's right. I think you're going to be dead in 5 minutes, or you're going to be safe in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But then in our society, we get home from work. We've had the stress of work, the stress of the drive, you know, crazy drivers cutting you off, all that sort of stuff. And then we get home to relax, and we turn
Turn on the news and
turn on the
get
news.
excited about something.
We
And then
watch Stranger Things and get scared out of our skin.
and then the children start fighting, and then you read an email that triggers you, and
Yeah.
then you go on your social media and you start scrolling.
And fighting. I can't believe he wrote that.
Yeah. Anyway, every time you do that, you're pushing the cortisol button. So this is called the HPA axis. Hypothalamus in your brain triggers, affects the pituitary, which then sends a signal down to the adrenals, and the adrenals dump cortisol in, and cortisol says we need resources. So if there's any glucose available, push that. If
Yeah.
there's not glucose available, melt your muscles and convert them into glucose.
Not the fat.
No, to glucose. And
No, I
then
mean, don't melt the fat, melt the
no,
muscle.
no, instant. Yeah. And then if you burn it off by fighting, running, jumping, whatever, then great, the glucose is gone. If you don't burn it off, then insulin shows up and says, time to clean up this unused glucose, and through the triglyceride pathway turns it into belly fat. So that's how a person who is constantly stressing is going to be melting away their muscle mass, turning it into belly mass. So you end up with this big belly and skinny arms.
Right. Okay, so let's move on to the 5 biggest metabolic health mistakes. And mistake number 1 is skipping protein. So in the morning, I'm going to have my muffin, my coffee, and
Yeah, Scott, we need to start somewhere else. We need to start with, it's the genetics that you're born with, that your ancestors predetermined for you what is optimal diet for you. Okay. So if your ancestors were living on the coast, fishing and living on the coastal lifestyle, you are going to be adapted through them to the coastal diet. If they lived in inland in a cold climate, you are going to be strongly adapted to that. I'll give you a good example. The American Indian, or well, the native, the Aboriginal of America.
it's hard to be politically correct these days.
God. They used to follow the buffalo. They were not agriculturists, they were hunters. They ate red meat whenever they could, and for winter they created pemmican, which is bear fat and dried berries. Anyway, that was their diet. They did not grow corn, wheat, rice, none of it. No bread, no pizza. So they were adapted to that diet. So when the colonizers showed up with bannock bread from flour and whiskey, it completely, what's the word? overwhelmed,
Yeah.
overwhelmed their metabolic adaptation. Okay.
Yeah. So then you have the Japanese that grew up on rice and fish.
Yeah, rice, fish. That's their thing, right?
Or
Korean diet.
The Polynesians were the same,
Yeah,
and they were all thin and
yeah.
healthy and strong. And
Yeah.
then we introduced old Dutch potato chips and Coca-Cola, and they just ballooned.
Yeah. So it was 1931 or 2 when Weston O. Price, a dentist with his assistant, went around the world, visited, I think, 13 or 14 sites. And his conclusion was, so long as the person eats their aboriginal diet, they do well. As soon as they switch to the industrial diet, that's imported foods from elsewhere, they start having troubles. And he was looking at it from the dental picture, and he talked about collapsing arches, crowding of the teeth on the lower jaw, cavities, ear size. Like, for example, large ear size is the dominant feature. Smaller ear size is a recessive genetics.
Yeah, because we want to have big ears to be able to hear the saber-toothed tigers coming after us, right?
I think so. But anyway, so he visited bizarre places. Like he went to see Maasai in Africa who live on raw blood and fat. He went to Switzerland where they live on rye bread, aged cheese, and sauerkraut. And he went to Norway where they live on dried cod and dried salmon and I don't know what, reindeer meat.
Right.
So the picture was, as long as you eat the diet that your ancestors ate for many generations, you'll be fine. When you mix it, you're in trouble. So if I move a Norwegian to Florida, they still need to be eating the Norwegian diet.
But they don't.
And so everybody in North America is now eating the Italian farmer diet. Spaghetti and meatballs and pizza.
Right.
And then we really improve on it by pushing sugar water with high fructose corn syrup on top. You know, cane sugar glycemic index is 70. What is it called? HFCS glycemic index is 87, meaning it's hotter metabolically than sugar.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say here is this. You started saying, what are the metabolic mistakes? First, you need to understand your genetics. Then come epigenetics, which is how your genetics interact with your life. And this is where you start falling apart by doing the wrong stuff. And the industrial diet makes it exceedingly easy to bring you kiwi fruit and dates and figs and pomegranates and whatever 24/7, 12 months out of the year,
right?
Which should not be possible theoretically. So now back to Scott, where he started saying, so the metabolic problems, right? Depending on your genetics, if you match your protein intake or your fat intake or your carb intake to what you're designed for, you're going to do fine. Right. If you mismatch it, you're going to do badly.
So some people will do really well on bacon and eggs in the morning, and other people need something else.
Yeah, like porridge, raisins, and eggs. Right.
So keeping the protein in there.
Well, and so here goes something like this. There's this thing called endocrine dominance, which we also need to understand. There are 4 main types. The thyroid dominant folk, of which I think half the population is that way, is protein 3 times a day, and fat makes you skinny, carbs make you gain weight. If you're the adrenal type, you're usually tempted to not eat breakfast. You're usually tempted by savory foods. And for you, fat in diet is gain weight tool, not a lose weight tool. So you're flipped. You're the other way around.
This is
So-
why some diets work for some people and not for others.
Right. And the third type is known as the pituitary, and they are usually attracted to creamy and fluffy and creamy yogurts, ice creams, cakes. But their health food is actually the organ meats, the high purine hunter food.
My mom was like that. She loved liver, and everyone else was like, "Oh, Mom, do we have to eat that?"
She cooked it and made everybody want to leave house because it was just
Liver and onions. Liver and onions. It was like,
Yeah.
oh. Maybe she didn't start us early enough and we just weren't used to it. I don't know, but it was.
No. You're a thyroid type. You can't handle it.
I can't handle it.
No, you can't handle it.
It's
You
awful.
are genetically not it. It's just, But if you are somebody like what's that actor? I think of him. He laughs in a crazy way. Rogan is his last name. I can't think of his first
Joe
name.
Rogan?
Pardon?
Joe Rogan?
Oh, Joe Rogan is the podcaster. He's different. He's the adrenal type. But there's this curly hair, big head, smallish body. Anyway, he's a comedian. Different guy.
Scott Rogers asks, what's the benefit in the 18-6 fast?
Okay, so if you are either the adrenal or the pituitary, you find it quite easy to skip one meal a day. The adrenals will skip the breakfast. The pituitary will skip the dinner. And what that is, it gives your body the ability to be quiet, not dealing with digestion. There's this thing called mTOR and this thing called, what are the four letters? AMPK. Okay, whatever. Those are complicated terms. Anyway, one is to burn food means that you're having to create heat. And with heat, it's like fire. You're burning food just the same way as you have built a campfire. So you have collateral damage from that.
And that's normal. Like that's a normal byproduct of eating.
Oh, yeah. That's life. So what you want to do is you want to shorten that, condense it into a small period, and then the other 18 hours or at least 16 hours, you're not eating. You're giving your body the ability to repair itself. So that's the benefit.
George says, I eat calf liver and cod liver. Good for you, George.
The best food on the planet, health-wise, if I may say so, is cod liver and cod liver oil. That stuff is loaded with omega-3 acids, DHA and EPA. Contemplate this. Your brain is 25% DHA by mass. That's dehexanoic acid, something. Docosahexanoic acid. Anyway, blah, blah.
All right. So mistake number 2 is sitting after meals and not going for a post-meal walk. Or,
Yeah, right.
You
want to activate the metabolism. You want to give it a reason to burn. So if you eat just a little, you're going to be extending your life. There's a really interesting experiment. They were restricting calories, right? Giving mice not quite enough. They live twice as long. And this translated into humans. People who don't eat to full live longer.
So skip the feast if you can.
Well,
and most people, they're at work. They say, okay, we're going for lunch. They go for lunch, 45 minutes of eating and talking and everything else. Then they get back in their car. They drive back to work and they sit for the next 4 hours. And
yes, that's it.
Have a smaller meal and go for a half-hour walk. It'll do you a lot better.
Yeah, and skip the martini.
Yeah, and then poor sleep is mistake number 3.
Yeah, now there goes, right? Sympathetic, parasympathetic. Sympathetic is the active, right? Get stuff done, the human doing. In the parasympathetic, It's be, it's veg, it's repair. That's the human being. And sleep is the optimal place or time when you repair all the stuff that you have abused. So it's like taking the car to the mechanic for the tune-up every day.
Yeah. Yeah. So finish eating at 6, go for a walk in the evening, wind down,
Yeah.
turn off your phone, go to bed,
But you
get
know,
8 hours sleep.
I mean, listen, don't tell this to a Spaniard or an Italian. They
Exactly.
shut it down and they have a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they go have a dinner at 9.
Yeah, neither of us are Spaniards or Italian, I don't think.
Well, but they are mostly thyroid dominant and they are mostly okay with that lifestyle. Like, I find it easy for me to take a nap at 1 p.m. It's very restorative. All I need is about 40 minutes. And
Well, that's good sleep.
yeah. But yes, I will gain weight if I eat after 7 p.m. That's a given. Yeah. Whereas if you're the adrenal type and have a big salad with steak after dinner, I mean, not after 9 o'clock, you're perfectly fine with that. Go figure. It really is individual. And some of us get lucky. Some of us are the fun food is also the one that keeps us in reasonable weight. For others, it's
the
genetic lottery where you have a really narrow sweet spot and everything else is getting you sick.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned the third
one.
one.
Well, the poor sleep, like most people are stressed out. So you're worried. You're up until 3 o'clock worrying about my daughter-in-law was telling me, like, I didn't get to bed till sleep till 2:30. I was just laying there wide-eyed worrying about stuff. So
now that is a sign of the sympathetic drive. She ate the wrong mix of stuff at dinner and she had herself stuck in the sympathetic mode.
Which is super activity.
Yeah. Well, anxiety, rumination, thinking about stuff, visualizing either future or past. You can either catastrophize your future or you can regret your past. Right. Either way, it's still anxiety.
Yeah. Mistake number 4, constant snacking.
Yeah, that's terrible stuff. That is never letting your body to clear the garbage. Yeah, you're always on, right? Yeah.
You weren't meant to have a full stomach 24/7.
No.
In fact, when you think back like 10,000 or 100,000 years when we were running around, we didn't get the deer every time. And sometimes we come back empty-handed. And, well, there was a couple berries that we found, and that's what we lived on for a few days until we eventually found it. So Scott would like us to comment on food sensitivities that show up later in life.
I can't eat ice cream anymore. Well, I pity you, Scott, because of course ice cream makes life nice. I lost my gluten tolerance at age 55. What happens is when you eat stuff that punches holes in the barrier that is the
lining of your stomach.
It's the lining of the guts, and there's this barrier that needs to be tight, and if you spread it apart, you're punching holes in it and it causes inflammation. So when you're young and repairs are fast, you can repair overnight or even between lunch and dinner. But once you get old enough that it takes longer than a day to repair, you're now in a constant state of inflammation.
And the other thing to do also, Scott, would be take things out or try like ice cream. Well, it's cream. It may be milk. It could be sugar.
Okay, let me name 3 things. Wheat, cow dairy, and corn. Okay, they produce different things. wheat or gluten is primarily affecting the thyroid and causing people to go hypothyroid. Corn primarily wrecks your joints, like arthritis and that sort of thing. And dairy, brain processing is probably the most neurology, right? The fat in milk and also the protein in milk is mostly affecting how your brain and your nerves are functioning. Like
Right.
multiple sclerosis, for example, would be a symptom of dairy intolerance.
So he's talking about not being able to eat ice cream. So there's lots of alternatives now to ice cream, right? Let me answer yes, yes, and yes. Okay, Scott. Thanks.
Okay.
So maybe if you like don't drink milk for a while and then try an ice cream that is dairy free and see if that works.
Okay.
And you know what? My son, I got him an ice cream maker because I was told he loved making ice cream for Christmas last year. So he's been making his own ice cream, and he'll use all these different ingredients. And so he can control the amount of sugar, he can control the protein powder, he can control whether it's milk or almond milk or cocoa milk or whatever it is. And he makes these beautiful, delicious ice creams. And as a sidebar, he was opening it up beside me one day, and I thought, oh, wow, like there's this chocolate ice cream. And it stunk. And I go, whoa, that ice cream really smells awful. And he sort of looked at me, and then I looked at him, and I said, did you fart? And it's like, yeah.
You know, what I wanted to mention is that I cannot handle dairy, but I can handle coconut. So there are some coconut-based creamy things that are cold and sweet.
Yeah. So get an ice cream machine, Scott, and make your own ice cream and see how it works.
Or spend your money. Like a tiny little tub of coconut ice cream is like $10, which would in the dairy ice cream would cost you $3.
Yeah, very special.
Yeah.
And mistake number 5, we've talked a lot about already, ignoring stress. I don't want to spend any more time on that because we're getting near the end of our time, and I want to talk about this amazing app that we've put together for everybody. So I'm going to bring it up here. And Martin, tell us a little bit about what people can do when they get this app.
So for those of you who like to use your phone, this is for people who like smartphone in their hand, interacting with the world. What we have this program called Metabolic Typing, and you can take the test, and it's done all in one go, and it includes evaluation. But we found that people were struggling with processing the test, and we're struggling with coming up with the answers. So we turned it into a linear thing where you gradually, by answering a bunch of questions, one little step at a time, end up at the same place, answering 2 questions. What's your metabolic type, and what's your endocrine dominance? And the app we created does that. Scott, could you show that multi-screen affair that we have somewhere?
Yes.
On a slide.
Oh,
well, whatever. Just roll through this. So this app is personalized metabolic health coach in your pocket, and you'll be interacting with it with these screens, with videos and charts and questions and answers, and we'll ask you a few questions in the intake of what your goals are and what your age is and whatever. But then we will be asking you the daily questions, as in how you're doing after a meal, and how was the meal? Was it mostly fat, mostly carb, this, that? And we'll help you hone in on the inputs and how they affect your outcomes. And in the app is running either for 3 months for quick, get at least the basics, or full year, which will be not just the basics, but also getting answers to what's blocking your health, right? It's not just additive, as in what you put in your mouth, but it also is subtractive, what you should not be putting in your mouth and what you should get out of your body. We call them the blocking factors, the stuff that is in your life that is causing your body to not be as healthy as it should be. And so
Right.
the longer process would involve that. Scott?
Yeah, no, that's excellent. So, Martin, let's talk a little bit about maybe one or two of your clients who has used metabolic typing to improve their
Yeah.
lives, because it can be pretty dramatic once you know your metabolic type and you start eating for your metabolic type.
Yeah, I remember this is now a few years ago, but a professional woman in, I don't know, chartered accountant or some such thing, called up and said, my mom just died from lupus.
Oh.
I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I'm just fearing my life. My joints are already distorting, and I'm in trouble. And so we did the typing. We did the long form typing. And so I told her what she needed to do. And she said, I thought that I was buying healthy stuff, but everything that's in my fridge and pantry is the wrong thing. So she cleaned it out, gave it away, and we started her off on the right approach. I remember she called about 3 months in and she said, Martin, I didn't even tell you this at the beginning, but I want to mention it. My joints on my feet were getting so swollen and distorted that I was having to wear running shoes to go to my job, to go to meetings. And I really am supposed to wear the professional attire, a business suit and proper shoes.
Right.
Well, I'm calling to tell you that I can put my proper shoes on.
Nice.
The distorted joints have reversed. But not only that, right? Like she became healthier. The symptoms went away. All of these autoimmune symptoms went away.
It's kind of like putting diesel in a Ferrari, right?
Yeah, that's about it. Oh, yeah. And taking it on a mud track.
Right. George, such a bad internet connection. I'll have to watch a replay. Frustrating. Sorry about that, George. We know what that's like. Very cool. So it can make a huge, I guess, one of the things that we talk about a lot is the body can heal itself if you give it the opportunity, but we rarely give it the opportunity. We're constantly in a state of stress. We're not in that rest and relaxation. Most of us don't spend any time hugging a tree or out in nature and getting sunlight in the wintertime and all those sort of good things. And this is just a good example of when you eat for the way your body wants you to eat and you look after yourself, it starts to change.
Right. Yes. Yeah. I mean, one of the biggest things is moods. When you dysregulate your pH by eating the wrong mix, you either go depressed or you go anxious. Acidity, a little bit is excitement, a little more is impatience, a little more is fear and anxiety, and more still is schizophrenia. So, it's a continuum. And the other direction, the other direction is first is procrastination, then is despondence, and then it's depression. Like all the way into pull your sheet over your head and declaring, I'm not getting out of the house today. I'm not getting out of the bed today.
Right. Okay, so we really want to encourage you to get the app. John, if you could bring the link up one more time. And we're really excited about it. We really want you to let us know what you think about it. With that, Martin, any last comments before we sign off?
When you fix those two things, the endocrine dominance and your metabolic dominance, your life becomes so much easier. much, much easier. It's sort of like learning to drive. Up to now, all you could do is walk or ride a bicycle. Now you can get in a car. I mean, the leverage you get is phenomenal. And this is like getting a user's manual for your body, understanding what happens and why.
Yeah. And all I'll add to that is awareness can lead to spectacular transformation. But without the awareness and the understanding, you're just going to be stuck on a treadmill. And that's not good. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Martin, thank you for taking time out of your busy day to share this information and create this app. And this has been the Life Enthusiast Health Shots podcast, restoring vitality to you and the planet. And we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
My body's a temple, but the walls are cracked. Stuck in the rubble of the years I've stacked. Stagnation in my veins like a river turned to dust. Toxic whispers in the wind, but I gotta rebuild. I must.